So good morning, everyone. I want to talk today about, or perhaps review a presentation that I gave in San Diego last year. In fact, I covered this subject on Dave's morning Rev call yesterday. I wanted to touch on it again because it's just a relevant and important subject. It's the subject of the necessity of making decisions. Critically, of course, how we make decisions in NECAN. I'm going to share my some slides today, but I want us to have some discussion on this and think about what decisions am I making right now for the good of my business. I want to read a quote out from to you, if that's all right. It is an act of kindness for leaders to press their people for a decision, because the absence of a decision to commit is a decision. I'll read that last line again. The absence of a decision to commit is a decision. As we go through today's presentation and discussion, I want you to evaluate in your own mind the level of commitment that you feel towards your current business and your goals. Specifically your goals. You might feel very committed to NECAN, and I've got no doubts of that for anyone that's on the call today. But what is my level of commitment towards my existing goals in NECAN? That's the real question. And that can be reflected in the decisions that I make on a day-to-day basis. Do the decisions that I make, and is the way that I invest my time reflective of the commitment that I feel I have? Sometimes we can confuse our emotion with our commitment. And because we feel a sense of emotion and devotion to something, we can believe that we're committed. But how we spend our time is a true reflection, isn't it? Perhaps even a better reflection of the depth of our commitment that we have. So, you know, how many times have we spoken to people? They say, oh, I'm too busy. I don't have time for this. I don't have time for that. I'm too busy for that. What they're really saying when they say they're too busy is it's not a priority to me. Are we too busy to eat? Are we too busy to sleep? Are we too busy to shower? Are we too busy to stay hydrated? Actually, some people do feel they are too busy to be hydrated. It's actually just, again, a misdirected sense of priorities, isn't it? We're not too busy to shower. We're not too busy to eat. We recognize, because these are essential functions, that we build that time into our daily schedule to make sure that those things happen. We don't want to be a stink bag walking around the street looking, you know, disheveled and a mess. we take care of ourselves because that's important to ourselves and to others. So we look after that. It becomes a priority. And it's the same with our business activities. We need to make sure that we prioritize them and that our activity is a reflection of our personal emotional commitment that we have made to our goals. So I'm going to do my screen share and share some things that perhaps get in the way. Okay, just a quick check. You can see that all right? Thumbs up. Yoko, can you see it? Yeah, okay, good. Excellent. Okay, so there are some reasons that we don't make decisions, or perhaps that we make bad ones. I want to emphasize this a little bit because one of the tendencies that we have, if we acknowledge that our decision making hasn't been good or that it isn't strong enough, sometimes I'm not sure about you, but at least for me, I go, that's because I'm lacking character right now. Right? Maybe I'm not disciplined enough. I need to be more disciplined, right? And I'll beat myself up because of that, right? I'm a bit of a perfectionist. and so I'll beat myself up and say, I've not made that commitment strong enough because I am not strong enough. That's not always the case. Sometimes there are factors that interfere with our decision-making process. And that's because in many instances, our perception of the facts gets distorted. Now, how does that work? There's a ton of reasons here, and I'm not expecting you all to, I'm not going to go through all of these. If you're on your computer, you may want to take a screenshot to read through some of these because they are wonderfully interesting. A whole host of different reasons why we may get a bias or a sense of illusion or disillusionment, perhaps, that can influence the way that we perceive the facts, interpret the facts, and then respond to them. And that, of course, influences our decisions. For example, our authority bias, our tendency is a tendency to be more readily accepting of a person's view if they have some sort of credential or fame. But of course, that viewpoint may still be incorrect. Self-serving bias, third row in, the tendency to remember and attribute success to personal characteristics while blaming past failures on outside sources. I like that one. That can certainly influence us. Negativity bias, paying more attention and more easily remembering negative things compared to the positive. Do you see how doing something like that can influence our ability to make good decisions? Let's look at a couple of others here, because there's so many that are good. Scarcity bias, an increased desire for that which we might lose. Loss aversion, a lot of us feel that. The pain of giving up an object is greater than the value associated with acquiring it. So sometimes we don't want to make decisions because of that. Mere exposure effect, increased favorability for things merely because we're familiar with them. Again, hyperbolic discounting, a strong preference for more immediate payoffs relative to later payoffs with greater value. Oh, that's a strong one, that, isn't it? How many of us prefer immediate gratification to long-term reward, even when the long-term reward is better for us? Yeah. My goodness. We can certainly see the carnage in America right now with all of this looting and rioting that's going on. Surely is a demonstration of some type of hyperbolic discounting in the minds of these looters and raiders, where the immediate gratification of their anarchistic behavior. I'm talking about the rioters, of course, not the peaceful protesters. There is a difference. Certainly that's nowhere near as rewarding as the long-term benefits of moral choices that are good. Yeah. But so we can see there's a load here. But again, you may want to take a screenshot of this, because there are some great examples of reasons why our ability to make good choices gets compromised. And of course, all of these different bias, all of these different illusions, all of these different perceptions of reality compromise us in many ways. And here are 5 ways that I've found they compromise us quite significantly. A lot of these influence our perception of ourselves. And in fact, I've said a number of times, one of the greatest barriers to our success in business is our perception of ourselves. And most often than not, I've had unanimous agreement with that the biggest reason is our perception of ourselves that holds us back from growing and achieving what we believe we can really achieve. If I think of myself too myopically, if I look down on myself, if I beat myself up, if I'm too self-critical, if my inner voice directed at myself is too cynical, then that's certainly going to influence not just my behavior, but my decisions. And in fact, what we do is the fruit, isn't it, of what we think, feel, and believe. So any goals that I commit to are going to be compromised by this. Any action that I take throughout the course of the week is going to be compromised by this. My energy with which I teach and speak to others is going to be compromised by this. So that's really critical, isn't it? That we get a correct perception of ourselves in order to truly commit to our decisions and our choices towards how we build our business. Again, moving on to point number 2, our perception of others certainly becomes influential. If I am pessimistic about the way that people live, think, and behave, then certainly that's going to influence the way I interact with them, the way I build relationships. This whole business is built on relationships, isn't it? And if I can't develop healthy relationships with others because I don't view them in the right light, that's going to compromise my ability to build rapport. It's certainly going to compromise my ability to have effective follow-up. Any of those types of things get compromised. Our perception of the facts. I love that little angle that changes everything. Picture of the ship. He turns his phone as he takes a screenshot or a photograph of the boat out there on the water. And what happens? It looks to him like it's sinking. Our perception of reality can be a huge contributor to how we decide to build our business. I've seen many people leave, walk away, fall into inactivity, stop building, change their goals, move the goalposts altogether, and redefine what they think their business should be, all because their perception of reality, of the facts, is compromised. It's skewed. They look through a lens darkly, and as a result, they see things that aren't really there. They misinterpret this, and I'm grateful. I've been fortunate to work in corporate offices, both here in Nikan and in other companies in our industry, throughout my entire career prior to being a distributor. And I've worked with, for the sake of context, as you know, multi-billion-dollar network marketing companies. And I've been on the councils for the Direct Selling Association, working with other leaders of other companies. And what do I see? Time and time again, it is the nature of business to be in this wonderful cycle where we go into and come out of a crisis or a challenge over and over and over again. Corporations experience that, and any of you on the call today that have been in your own respective industries prior to being in Nikan will have seen the same thing. Whether you've been in real estate and all of a sudden there's a real estate crisis, a market crisis there. Whether you've been in the medical industry, the medical profession, and you've been running hospitals. Yeah, we've got people on the line here that have been in those situations. Have you seen that cycle exist there, where you've been in and out of crisis over and over again, and you don't plan for it, you don't expect it, but it comes out of the blue and it sidelines you, and you go, where did that come from? Yeah, when we don't have experience with that, we go, oh my goodness, the world is collapsing. You know, the sky is falling like Chicken Little. The sky is falling, and we run around in panic, and we think it's the end. But it's not. It's simply the nature of life and business. And when we can embrace that and accept that, then our perception of the facts starts to get aligned with reality. And then we can move our phone as we take that picture and get a better shot. And we can see that actually the ship is not sinking. That's really important. But we can see here that what's happening is what influences our perceptions is both our experience and our interpretation of experience. Yeah, we can all have the same experience, but we can interpret it differently. So it's important that we can give the facts good context, but also have a good interpretation of how things really are. And that leads us to our next couple of points. Our perception of the past. And that can be in regards to us and our choices. Oh, maybe I'm just not good enough, and my past proves it, because look at this. This failed, that failed. I've recruited this many people, and this many people have stopped. I've recruited this, I've had this many number of customers, and maybe this number of people aren't buying anymore. Or maybe I should be at this rank, but I'm not. And it's all because of, and maybe that perception of the past links back to our perception of ourselves, and those two bind themselves together. And we go, I'm failing because I'm a failure, or whatever it might be, right? Devastating, critical words we need to avoid. The reality is our past is an educator. It's a teacher. And whatever has happened, it's not how we fall. It's how we get back up that matters. Yeah. We all fall, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. If we look at our past, we have all fallen, and we have all fallen multiple times, and we have all fallen in different ways. And that's all right. We don't need to make comparisons as to who had the best or most graceful fall, right? We've all fallen, and some of us done it spectacularly, but that's not the issue. It's how we get back up that matters, or perhaps the fact that we do. I love this quote. I think I shared this the other day, but I'll share it again because I've been reading this a couple of times recently. It's again from Man's Search for Meaning. He says, recent pollsters reported that those held in highest esteem by most of the people interviewed are neither the great artists nor the great scientists, neither the great statesmen nor the great sports figures, but those who master a hard lot with their heads held high. I love that. Yeah, it's so true, isn't it? Whether we fall, it's not even how many times we fall down. It's the fact that we keep on getting up and that we keep on committing to that. And even if it's hard, we hold our heads high and we do it anyway. Why? Because it's right. Yeah, because it's right. Life will always knock us down, and it is always our duty to get back up. That's why we have heroes in the world, because they inspire us to keep getting back up. And if we can get that one lesson learned, I believe that will master our distortions of view on all 5 of these points. Look at that. Our perception of ourselves is typically broken if we don't see the power of our ability to get back up when it's hard. Our perception of others, perhaps because we see them getting back up, or because we don't see them falling down, or perhaps we compare our weaknesses with their strengths. Yeah. Our perception of the facts, our perception of the past, and our perception of the future often hinges on our commitment and decision to get back up with our head held high. If we can do that, my goodness me, I think we master most of life's challenges pretty well. So let's look at 4 ways to make sure that we make some better decisions moving forward in order to have this sense of commitment and devotion prioritized in the right way. So we've got all of these hidden influences that thwart our ability to make good choices, as we've seen. What are some ways that we can make better choices? These 4, I think, stand out as most important for me. The first is to be humble. Before any decision, we should acknowledge that we may not see the situation as clearly as we think. I think that's really important, that we can acknowledge humbly that perhaps we don't have all experience in the world, perhaps that we don't know all the facts, perhaps that we don't see everything with crystal clarity, because we're imperfect, we're human, and that's okay. That's not admitting defeat. It's just being honest with ourselves and being okay that I'm not perfect. So if I can be humble, and humility in my eyes is a combination of strength and weakness, isn't it? It's acknowledging our weakness, but also recognizing that we're strong. It's both. It's a wonderful paradox that coexisting within us is strength and weakness. And we can embrace them all. We can embrace them both. That's what humility is. But if we can humbly acknowledge that maybe there's others around that might have some input that could be of help, that might be of an assistance to us as we make our decisions. So we want to acknowledge that we don't have all the facts, or maybe we don't have all the facts. Why is that important? Because we want to make sure when we make our decision that we do. Yeah. So we don't want to go in blind and just assume that I am smart enough and I don't need to do my research. We want to be smart enough, and so we want to do our research. So we start off with humility as a good foundational virtue to lead us on the right path. Next, we become aware. We do the necessary research to get the knowledge to influence us so that we can make informed choices. If we want to have conviction in the process or the formula that we're following, if we want to have confidence in the decisions that we're making with our business, then we want to have informed decisions as the key influences in what we do. So like I said, we begin with being humble about it so that we can seek out the information and be truly informed. To me, I love that, because now when I'm making decisions, I can argue it, defend it, and stand by it, and stand up for it with great conviction, because I know I'm fully informed, and my decision is right. When I know that and I've got conviction there, I can stand by it and run behind it with great strength. Seek outside help. Gather additional perspectives. Deliberately, I say this, from wise people. This can help triangulate reality. This is important because I put there deliberately from wise people, because so often, how many times do people get advice from the wrong sources? Yeah? You want to get sources that are valuable and that contribute meaningfully. If, as a jazz musician, I want to become a better jazz performer, I'm not going to go to my hairdresser to get advice on how to perform better, or to my mechanic that's fixing my car, or to my accountant. And dare I say it, I'm not going to ask Ken. She doesn't love jazz near as much as I do, right? So I'm not going to ask her, right? But if I want financial advice, guarantee you I'm going to ask Ken, right? Because she is the best financial mind in my life by far, right? She's smart that way, and she's got her head screwed on wonderfully. I'll go to her for that advice, but when it comes to artistic advice, I might seek somewhere else, right? So we want to go to the right sources that have got the experience in the right places. So let's make sure we do that. Spiritual advice we get from spiritual leaders. Business advice we get from business leaders. Creative advice we get from our creatives. Parental advice we get maybe from great parents. We get the drill. We see the formula. We see the pattern. Yeah. But there are so many uninformed opinions on the internet that we need to make sure, if we're searching online, that we do our due diligence on researching the people that are giving us advice online. Everyone, we can get advice aplenty online. We've got to make sure that it's good advice, it's sound advice, and it comes from the right sources. So we need to do our research there and make sure we know who we're getting our direction from on that basis. The last point, follow a process. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We learn what's worked well for others, and we can duplicate. And that's one of the great things about NECAM. We can see what patterns work. And sometimes if something is being taught, but you go, I'm not seeing much evidence of this right now. That's not always because the pattern or the model doesn't work. It could be because people aren't working the model. That could be a reason. It could also be that results take time to measure. Yeah, there's a law of the harvest that applies here. And sometimes, I can bring this to an end here. Sometimes in the process of waiting for the fruit to be born, people give up, they get impatient, and they quit. Right? They stop doing it. So they start the process, but they don't finish the process. That becomes problematic. So we need to trust the systems that are available. We've got some great models available in NECAM, but we also have a need to be patient with the process. And as we just keep working and be diligent, I am confident that the results will bear fruit and we'll get the results that we need. So I think as we come to a conclusion today, I hope this brings us to a point where we can say, okay, are there some things that I need to do different in the way that I'm making commitments to my business? A decision, as we know, means to decide, means to kill or to cut off. Decidere, that's the Latin word for decide, to kill or to cut off alternatives. When I have made a decision to really invest myself in NECAM, what does that look like to me? We know what it feels like, but what does it look like in practical terms? What does it look like on a day-to-day basis? There are people that I know. I had a great call last night. I don't want to embarrass them and mention their names. Maybe I should. Can I? Let me see. Are they on today? I think they're in meetings. They often catch this after the call. I'm going to mention them. I'm sure they won't mind. Ruth and Robert Lowe. Wonderful people. I absolutely love this couple. And they set goals. And on a monthly basis, we check in with each other to see how they're doing. Every month they keep their commitments. Every month they achieve their goals. They've got thousands of volume to keep them on track for achieving their goals. And they do it. And I'm so proud of them. And I like this because what they're doing is simple. They make a goal, they've got their reason why, they commit to it, and then they hold themselves accountable, and they've brought me in to assist in that process, maybe just get a second set of eyes to triangulate, as we talked about earlier on, reality, to make sure, are we seeing this right? Are we doing this correct? And they're doing awesome. I feel sometimes wonderfully irrelevant in some of these calls because they're doing such a great job. It's like, yeah, fantastic. It's great. So if we make that commitment, make that decision, and then pursue it with weekly committed activities, they know what they have to do. They know each week, if I commit to this amount of activity, I will get my results. They know it. They've tried it and tested it enough to know what to do works. We can all do that, ladies and gentlemen. If the results aren't meeting our needs, if they're not coming in that weekly, monthly way, maybe we need to make some adjustments. Maybe we need to pull in a third person, a second person, a third party, to evaluate, to observe, to give some feedback, to get some counsel, because humbly we can acknowledge maybe I don't have all the facts, and that's okay. But that helps us to get informed, helps us to do things right, and it helps us to strengthen our commitment so that we can come away going, now I feel more confident, so that when the winds blow, I can still stand strong versus get knocked over because I was a little uncertain to begin with. To truly decide requires conviction. To truly cut off alternatives, we need to have confidence. And we can't do that in isolation, independently, unless we've got a ton of experience in what we're doing. And even sometimes, even then, we need the strengthening hand of someone else to bear us up and to hold on to. So let's do this together. The critical thing is, in making great decisions, in being truly invested in our business, what is the conclusion that we come to here? The conclusion is we're stronger together than independently. Yeah, we're stronger as a team than we are alone. So let's keep ourselves bound together. Let's link arms. Let's do this together. Let's make commitments together. Let's decide together to really build this and invest our time and energy into doing great things with Nikan, and then be patient with the process for the results to come and for the law of the harvest to reveal the fruit. And it comes in every season. So thank you all very much. I hope this has been helpful. And if you want some help in making some decisions about Nikan and how to move forward, if you want some chance to evaluate and to reflect and go, how is this working for me? Can you give some input? Reach out. You can reach out to me. I can see a hand going up there. Excellent. Reach out. Let's have some conversations. Let's talk. And you can talk with me. You can talk with a host of other leaders. I'm confidently raising the hand of others on the line that are upline diamonds or royal diamonds, be they upline or crossline, because I unanimously, consistently hear everyone say, we want to help each other. That's the great, lovely beauty I just adore about Nikan, is that we all just want to help each other succeed. So reach out. Let's do this together. We're stronger when our roots are linked and tied together. So thank you all very much. Reach out and I'll speak to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.